What's your fake scenario that will never happen, but I like to imagine it anyway, so that I can fall asleep? I use a fan for white noise. So sometimes I pretend the sound is the humming of a spaceship, and I'm sleeping in a little bed next to a big window looking out into space. Adventures of Space Cowboy continues. I imagine things I wish I said. Not like arguments that I win. I'm just kinda introverted, and I don't say a lot of things that would greatly add to a conversation. I time travel to 1973 and try to explain the internet to people. I'm living in an alpine cabin above the snow line. Just me and a dog. Each day I cut firewood. Each night I spend the evening watching the fire and drinking black coffee while the dog snores. Seeing my grandfather again. I dream about him a lot because he was the best friend I'll ever have, and I really effing miss him. It's been a long time now since he passed away, and I'm starting to forget things about him, and it hurts my heart so much. Finding my soulmate and falling in love. No shit. I used to envision that there's global epidemic of some kind and the world has gone to shit. Looting and whatnot. The government has collapsed and I have to be super quiet to avoid the upheaval outside. I got like 60% of that for real in 2020 and it wasn't nearly as cool as my daydream. I have a 16-year fantasy world, not really written. Mostly just back of my mind kind of escape, and I just expand on that for a bit. Really interesting thinking back on what I've brought up for it, and how big/small it's gotten. At this point I've gotten to an anthology type stage, where there's a main story in the background, but a lot of mini stories being told to secondary and tertiary characters. Mostly because the main character has been around for so long and gone through so many realities that this helps other people catch up and lets me go over what I came up with before but didn't really expand on. It's nice to be able to go back to that, but still keep everything alive and progressing. I did make this when I tried to explain the structure to someone and show how the reality works, but it started taking me more than an hour to explain. https://imga.com/length2q PNG. The main character is the Titan god of chaos, but that's more of a title. Not really all that special except for some things that don't do a whole lot help him, has really hurt him in the long run tbh. Edit, hurt him. Weird thing, but what helps me sleep is imagining that I'm sleeping with a group that's being hunted by insert fantasy creature here. But our party's wizard has created an illusory safety bubble that keeps us warm, comfortable and hidden from our would-be foes. What I would do on a deserted island. Like my survival plan. That's my retirement plan. Being cuddled/given affection/comforted and being told nice/reassuring things while I'm feeling lol. I used to fantasize about winning the lottery to go to sleep. It can be fun. Mainly I think about where I would go on travel, what concerts I would see, how many festivals can I do in a year, etc. As I've gotten older, I recognize that winning the lottery is quite likely to ruin my life instead of elevate it. I'm fairly fortunate in my career, and so I have the privilege to say this. I'm not hungry. My kids get clothes and school. I'm able to pay a mortgage. Stuff like that. See, when you start thinking about this stuff, it doesn't help with sleep. So sometimes I think of myself in the world of one of my favorite movies or books. How would I contribute to the events or interact with the characters? Harry Potter is a special favorite. I usually imagine that I'm going to sleep next to someone I love, despite being intensely single. Of course, I'm not myself in this imaginary scenario, since I'm younger, and more attractive, and more talented, and more interesting, and, of course, this other person is totally imaginary too, and sometimes it's in some kind of sword and sorcery fantasy world, but not always. Sometimes thinking about it makes me cry, because I know I'm too old and too ugly for this to ever happen. But sometimes I can sink into it enough that I'll fall asleep. Having a girlfriend that loves me, a friend to talk to, a mom and dad that's still alive. Being happy. I miscarried a baby several years ago now. Through resulting complications I lost my ability to have children. I have no idea why, but I just know it was a little girl. Most nights I fall asleep thinking about who she would have become. In middle school I would imagine that a portal would tear through my classroom and a group of uniformed mythological people would come out and would urgently request me by name and tell me that they really needed me, and then they would whisk me away to some other world where I was their only hope in some ancient war, just so that everyone around me could wonder why I was so important. Over a decade later I'm writing a webcomic about it. Got about 100 pages out. I'm deleting it now so I can redo it, since now I'm a proper adult and not a broody 15-year-old. I'm rich and I don't need to wake up at 6:30 in the morning. I imagine I finally have a boyfriend, or better yet, husband, and we are cuddling. I'm being hugged by someone who actually cares for me and makes me feel as if the world only exists between the two of us. Edit. Thank you Mr./MS. Anonymous for the hug. I definitely need one right now. Quitting my job with no notice. I did that once. It was every bit as great as you imagine it. I had some money saved up and had a small side business I was working on. My regular job totally sucked and was going downhill fast. I was due to work a 4 p.m-12 shift. I was out golfing, and after the first 9 I would have to leave to get ready for work. I started to pack up to leave, but noticed it was a beautiful sunny day, not too hot. I was out having fun with my friends and realized you only get so many of these days in your life. So I picked up my phone, quit my job, lit up a joint, and played 27 more holes of golf instead of going to work. This was in May and I decided to just not work that summer. I had burned through my savings by September, but it was worth it. This was 17 years ago and honestly it was probably the best summer of my life. I regret nothing. I imagine that I'm a homeless guy, trying to sleep on a park bench. It's freezing cold, and I only have a ragged dirty old suit on. I struggle trying to cover my body with newspapers and cardboard to keep warm. Then a kind person delivers me from this freezing hell and places me in my warm bed, where I'm currently, all snuggly. Me getting railed by Michael Fassbender. My fake scenarios just range between wholesome life and sex. Beach life. Palm tree with warm wines. Not too hot but comfortable. What I imagine a resort in paradise with those solo huts to be like. I go to the pub and pick up cute boys by talking to them about Lord of the Rings. Then we end up talking about Lotta for hours and I seduce them with my nerdiness. A very weird thing that helps me sleep. I make a story in my mind. Right now it's set in the Walking Dead universe. There's this girl named Rose and this guy named Arthur. Other characters of course, but I tell stories about what they go through. It kinda mirrors my life struggles, but in the land of the dead. Don't judge me. Edit. It's effing weird. I know. I imagine paying off all my debts, one by one. Once they are all paid I can sleep. I just imagine someone is cuddling me. It's sad Ike, and I hope it isn't impossible, but damn S is looking grim. I'm in the Star Wars universe, mostly banging Kylo Ren or the Mandalorian, but once in a while I just have cool force powers and lightsaber skills. Being a worldwide recognized music artist meeting all the celebrities I always wanted to meet. A universe ruled by evil space wizards warring against each other. I make up a whole history and such. I've won the lottery, and it's a big one. I've secretly collected my winnings. I've bought a big plot of land with lots of beautiful and unique scenery. And I'm building homes for my immediate family and best friend that somehow are technologically advanced and good for the environment. With respect for the environment around us being heavily considered, I find an financial investor I can trust to build my money, take some risks, invest in green businesses and set up trusts for my children, grandchildren and so on. I can now afford to always shop in small businesses, farmers markets, craft shows and mom and pop places. I'm able to invest wisely and dress inconspicuously, so that I do things like leave a $100 tip for a cup of coffee. They wonder who I was, Oh, and my family can finally have the dogs, cats, birds, guinea pigs, turtles, fish and rabbits that they've been asking for. I have used this technique for years. I win the Powerball and collect the money anonymously. I pay off all my family's mortgages, buy them luxury cars that they find parked in their driveways, establish giant scholarships at my high school and college, buy houses for the families I have mentored over the years, give huge donations to my favorite non-profits, and keep wishing up fun and wonderful surprises on and on till I can sleep. You can't win if you don't play. Night. Me in a Britney Spears music video. I play out conversations about the weirdest things with random people, like talking about animal cruelty with the guys who wrote Phineas and Ferb. Apparently it's what PPL who have been through trauma do to process stuff, but I think my brain is just slow. Owning a Porsche. Going back to 1450 to vaccinate and arm the North American continent before the European invasion. There is something that always keeps playing in my head. I'm part of the Teutonic Order fighting a glorious last stand to shift the battle at the last second in our favor. I like to imagine being in a cave in a blizzard, cozy in the cave, while the whipping winds of my ceiling fan circulate oxygen in my blanket den. So Chick-fil-A has a thing where once a year you dress up as a cow and get free food. So my scenario is that me, my best friend, who I don't have yet, and the rest of my grade dress up in inflatable cow suits and raid Chick-fil-A for free food during that event. There's also one where the same thing happens, except it's at Olive Garden and everyone is wearing inflatable dinosaur costumes. We seat ourselves and say please and thank you, put our napkins in our laps, push in our chairs, treat everyone with respect, etc. Lottery win and how I would tell family and treat them to gifts, etc. Also how I could affect the world. I don't struggle for money for myself at the moment, but £100 million is a world-changing level of money. I like to make all-timer baseball lineups. Gets my mind off whatever it is I'm thinking of. For some reason, I used to always imagine getting bitten by a wolf and then turning into werewolf. Most of mine just turns to sex. I'm suddenly filthy rich and can finally support my family. I'd buy us a house and good health food. If we needed something I could get it. If something broke I could get it fixed. I could donate to charities and support groups. Sometime I also imagine in this world that calories don't count, so I don't have to keep dieting. I think about my grandma's house. She passed away 2 years ago after having a stroke that basically paralyzed her from the neck down. She had lived in that condition for 8 years before she died. I think about coming home from school and her giving me milk and cookies while I played Ocarina of Time with the fire roaring. Unlike the video game, I can't go back in time and visit her again, but it's nice to remember. Me being successful in life. So this requires lots of backstory. Last year I became really good friends with this girl. I had known her before cause we go to the same school, but now we were real close. I started developing a crush on her gradually. As our friendship progressed it got stronger. Then one morning we were joking and being stupid before school and I suddenly realized I loved her. Kept it a secret for about 4 or so months. But then I finally told her and we are really close now. Result: rejection. Turns out she's aromantic. Not gonna explain what that means for those of you who don't know, Google it. So not really personal and not her fault. Just not possible. So my sleep fantasy is that story playing out in a completely different way. I'm huddled by a fire in a shelter during the last ice age after a successful hunt and listening to the stories of elders. Snuggled in heavy warm furs with my husband, the fire crackles. Our wolf pup sleeps next to us. The wolves are howling outside and hear us cackle on the plains. A lone cry of a large saber-toothed cat or cave lion bellows over miles across the cold-swept plains. Our hut is part of a lodge, connected by mammoth bones built by our predecessors, fortified with strong boughs, hides, even stones. It keeps us warm and dry. The wind howls long and lonely like the wolves bringing snow and ice. Wrapped in furs, I cuddle with my husband as it keeps us warm underneath. I kiss him and he wraps himself around me. I hear the low breathing of our puppy with slight running in his sleep. The elders talk long into the night, a low chorus against hide and stick walls. I can hear owls calling too, breaking a harsh cold silence after the wolves have moved. The wind is blowing and the soft hush of snow falling. I feel myself drifting in the warmth of the furs and embrace of my love. The last I see are the embers and soft orange flames of the fire. I thought I was the only one. Me, writing everyone else's ideas down to use later. Dying works every time. Stopping a school shooting was my go-to as a teen. I just wanted to imagine people respecting me for once. That I can replay situations from my past and do something different or just enjoy the moment. I like to imagine that I'm in a rainy jungle sitting in a big cave with my panther and a nice campfire. Me finally finishing all of my responsibilities. Being relaxed and everything. My shittier rock skin and stuff lets me escape reality and enter in my own little world where I have nothing to worry about. Having someone to hold as I fall asleep. I write novels in my head. Science fiction mainly. I was particularly pleased with one I came up with about an alien race attempting to invade Earth, but being utterly horrified by our barbarism and other negative traits, before being utterly corrupted by them. They also were severely affected by rampant addiction to chocolate, which was a powerful narcotic to their species. Finally humans turned the tables on them, accelerating past them in technological development, arriving at their homeworld in a FTL-capable battle cruiser bristling with advanced weapons. As you can imagine, I was rather crestfallen when I got around to reading the World War series by Harry Turtler Dove. Being with her, that one Redditor's dead wife. My dog and I are hunting in a deep jungle. Mainly we sit and watch and wait. I try out for American Idol and I'm able to give every girl over 18, except my family members, intense orgasms just by singing, except through car radios. I don't even like to sing. Just blending different novels / mangas I read together, keeping the parts I thought were cool / wholesome and nging other parts. I'm in a big library with wood paneling and a roaring fire while it's storming outside.